Hello everyone, this is Priya and today we are going to see table variables and temporary table in SQL Server. Firstly, we will see the table variables. Table variables is like the other variables in a SQL Server. Only the data type is table. In for other variables in SQL Server, we are using the data types like integer, character, big int, small int, float. That likes in table variables, we are using the data type table. The scope of variable is only within the execution of query. Means table variable have the life only within the execution of query. After that it will be destroyed variable from the memory. The syntax for the table variable is declare. Here there is a must condition to put @ before the table name. Here I will give the table name T. The data type is table, and now I will give the column names here. Column is ID and we are giving here in data type for the ID is integer. This is the syntax for table variable. In this way we can create the table variable. Now I will insert the values inside the table. Insert into @t and column is ID, values one, comma 2, 3. This is the values we are inserting into the table. The syntax is similar to the other variables we are inserting into the tables. Now I will execute this query. 3 rows are affected. Now we will see result for this query. So that's why we will select all from @t. For this execution we have to select all the queries, means from the declaration to selecting from the variable, because that variable have scope only within this query. Out of this query it doesn't know anything. Here we get the result 1, 2, 3. This is syntax and way to insert the values inside the table variable. Now I would like to tell you some pros and cons for these table variables. It is used as temporary storage to store intermediate result state in a SQL query for further data manipulation. To use table variables, you don't need special permission like you need in creating temporary table. Means DDL permissions are not required in case of table variables. You don't need to be care about dropping the table after execution, as drop is not applicable for this, because we are creating here table variables and that variables are stored in a memory, not on the disk. That's why there is no necessity to drop the table or drop the variable. So we will see the next cons and pros. Unlike temporary table, it resides on memory, not on disk. That told you. So it is faster than the temporary table because it's on memory. Now, in SQL Server user-defined function, we can't create temporary table. So, in this case, we have to use table variable, and using table variable is useful in that case. Okay. Now, I would like to tell you some cons related to the table variables. So, it doesn't participate in a transaction if we fire some DML statements like delete or update, and we cannot roll back it. Means if we created some or we executed some DML statements on the query, and after that we cannot roll back it because it is not saved on the disk, it is saved on the memory. And if we are using a large data storage, that time it is advisable to not to use table variables. At that time we have to use temporary table. After that, we cannot create indexes explicitly on the table variables, but we can create primary key at the time of declaration. And we cannot alter the table variables. Means once we created it, we have to use as it is. There is no alteration. We can't modify the table variables after the declaration, since alter statement cannot be applicable for the variables. Okay, now next cons is when it comes to performance, SQL Server doesn't maintain distribution statistics of table variables. It keeps for temporary table. And whenever we are using join, that time must to use alias. Means in table variables, if we are using alias, that time we have to use alias, and that is mandatory. Now we will see how alias are required. For that purpose, I will declare one more table. Just I will copy all the things from here. We have to give here table 1. Okay, here we have to replace T1. Here I will give the T1 1 2 3. Okay, enter it table 1. This is not necessary, I will vanish it. Okay, from this, so I will vanish it. Now I will write the query for the joins. Select id from @t inner join @t1 on @t dot id is equal to @t1 dot id. Now we will get some error here. Must declare the scalar variable. Means we have to give here alias name as A, and here we will give alias name as a B. So here we have to mention a.id is equal to b.id. Here also we have to give a.id. Now I will execute the query. Here we get the result for this. Means here we have to mention alias name. This is must. Okay. Now we will see the temp table. Temp table. Syntax for the temp table is similar like creating table in SQL. Create table. Only the difference here we have to mention hash before the table name. Hash temp column name id comma int is the data type. This is syntax to create table, that is temporary table. The temporary table is used for storage of intermediate result set in a SQL query for the further data manipulation. The scope of temporary table is throughout the session, means until the session is get disconnected or destroyed, it will give this scope or temp table is alive. Temp table gets destroyed automatically once session gets closed. The temporary table can be used in multiple SQL queries, batches, sharing the same session. Means within this session we can write multiple SQL queries. It can be used in a transactions, means insert, update, delete statement can be rolled back, unlike table variables. We saw already in a table variable we can't do the DML statements just like update, delete, insert. Locking and isolation applicable for the temporary tables. The SQL Server maintains the distribution statistics for the temporary table, which helps SQL Query Optimizer to prepare and opt the best execution plan. The temporary table can be altered once created. That means we can perform add, delete, modify column or rename the column. We can add or and indexes on the temporary table. Use of alias is not necessary at the time of joins in temporary table. And when we create temporary table, it gets created in temp database. We have to drop it explicitly once use of the table is completed. Now I will show the creating table in the database. Now I insert into hash temp column is id. Now values like 4, 5, comma 6. Now I will write select all from hash temp, and now selecting all the queries I will execute it, and now this temporary table is created in database. I will show you. This is our database, and in database there is a temp db. We can see here is temp db, and here temporary tables are created. I am just refreshing it. I will get the table with the name hash temp and so many underscores, and after that we get some digit here 8. In this way our temporary table is stored in database. Okay, now I will only execute the query select star from hash temp. Now I will execute it, get result. That means we get the result in this session whenever we need. The scope of the temporary table is live until we are not disconnecting this session. If I will show you, if we create new, we are taking new query browser, and here I just copy the query from here, Control C, Control V. Okay, now I will execute this query. See, we get the result invalid object name hash temp. That means it has only scope within this session. This is a temp table. Okay, now we will see the global temporary table. The syntax is same as for the temporary table. I will copy the syntax from here and paste here. Control V. Okay, here just one hash we have to add, and here I will give name just hash double hash temp 1. This is global temporary table. Okay, I will change the values 8 and 9. This is syntax for creating the global temporary table. Now select all from temp 1. Now I will execute the query. See the result. Okay, this is already in. Okay, now I will give here GB global temp table. Control C, Control V, Control V. Okay, now I will execute the query, get the result. Okay, now I will tell you something about the global temporary tables. It is also used as intermediate result storage for the further data manipulation, and it also get destroyed automatically after closing session if we don't drop it explicitly. Scope of the global temporary table is across the session. It can be used in multiple SQL queries, batches, sharing the same session as well as in a different sessions also. But it have one condition, it will give the scope until it is live in a parent session. It can be used in transactions, means insert, update, delete statements can be rolled back. Locking and isolation applicable for the global temporary table. SQL Server maintains distribution statistics for temporary table, which helps SQL Query Optimizer to prepare and opt best execution plans. Temporary table can be altered after creating, means we can add, delete, modify and rename it. We can add and delete indexes on global temporary table. Use of alias is not necessary at the time of joins in a global temporary table. And we create the global temporary table, we have to drop it explicitly, and the content inside the global temporary table is created on the database, on the disk, not on the memory. Okay, now I will execute the query, and okay, we already executed the query. Now we'll see the global temporary table in the database. Now here is temporary table. I will refresh it. Here the GB temp table is created. Okay, this is the differences between table variable, temporary table and global temporary table. Thank you. If you like my video, then subscribe my channel.